You stand in front of the alleyway, slowly stepping into the darkness. You've always hated this part of your walk home from work. But every day you gather up your courage and ignore your instincts to be afraid. Walking quickly, you keep your eyes fixed on the ground. But as soon as you hear footsteps, your head whips back at the blackness behind you. Through the darkness, you can barely make out a figure about 30 feet away. It's huge and round. Looking at its shadow cast on the wall, you see something coming off of its face. Something long and feather-like. You realize it was just a mustache. You continue down the alley, intent on the idea that it was just a fat man walking the same way as you. But the footsteps grow louder, and faintly in the distance, you can hear the soft sound of... What is that? Children singing? No, not just children. The sounds, enveloping you now, resemble that of men and women of many ages. Some are high-pitched, and others are low, but they are all singing the same tune. The song brings a wave of nostalgia over you. You used to sing this song every day when you were a kid, but your flashback ends when the voices begin to turn sinister. They sounded like they were extremely pained, as if they had fallen from the roof into a pile of garbage 3 times over and then were forced to sing a song. No, it was worse than that. They were wailing and screaming, as if they had been forced to listen to the Nyan Cat song for 5 hours straight, locked in a closet with Will Ferrell slowly licking their ear. The pace starts to quicken up until you're running full speed away from this thing, but it's much faster. Within 1 second, it's right in front of you. It is hideous. What you thought was a fat belly is actually an enormous muffin. His arms and legs stick out of it, and it reaches up to his neck. But one detail in particular strikes you as strange. On its side, there was a dent in the muffin, and it looked like something went up and took a bite out of it. Blood drips from the wound and stains the delicate confection. You scream at the sight of it, but every sound you make was drowned out by the voices. It walks closer, grabbing you with its chubby little hand before you can react. It holds you 3 feet in the air. It smiles menacingly before you are shoved into the hole in its side. You fall down onto a pile of bodies that scream as you land on them. You try to get up and escape, but something holds you in place. That same something begins to make you sing. You try to scream, but all that comes out is a wailing noise to the tune that you know all too well. Do you know the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man, the Muffin Man? Do you know the Muffin Man? This is the story of the time-traveling dad. He died in 1997 after buying his son a 2012 Mustang and then being killed by the rake. My name is Ralph, but most people simply refer to me as time-traveling dad. It's quite a long story why. You see, I'm a dad. I also time travel. I'm sorry if that was confusing. It all started when I went to a spooky hotel on Halloween. I was on vacation, and I had rented a room in a hotel in a small town called Dread. My room number was 13. And I would only be staying for 1 night. When I drove to the top of a hill in the middle of a dark, secluded forest built next to an... When I drove to the top of the hill in the middle of a dark, secluded forest built next to an Indian burial ground, the hotel was right in view. It was odd-looking and cast a gloomy gloom that shrouded the area, very gloomy. I pulled into the seemingly empty parking lot and opened my car door. I went around to my trunk and opened it. I pulled out my suitcase and a gun I called Pacemaker. Suddenly, I heard a noise. It was a scary noise. Looking out into the dark forest, the only source of light, a dim street lamp. I saw a tall figure that looked like a man. The man was very skinny. A synonym for that word would be slender. The figure approached me. I stood there and waited. I waited to see what this person would do. Suddenly it became apparent that this was no ordinary person. He, she, it was not walking, but instead just appearing. I was starting to get the fuck scared out of me, so I quickly picked up my stuff and ran for it. I ran straight through the entrance of the hotel and kept running until I noticed something. It was completely silent. No one was in the hotel at all. I noticed a key card sitting on the desk in the main lobby. It said room number 13, and it looked like a normal hotel key card, but there was a red stain on the back. Looking out the window, I saw the slenderish man dude waiting outside in the parking lot. I could get a better look at his facial features. There happened to be none. I was getting more creeped out, so I decided to look for my room. As I passed by the breakfast buffet area, I saw a CD on the table. Written on the front in Sharpie was Knuckles.exe. I didn't bother with the DVD, but instead kept moving. The hotel was rather small. There were only 2 floors. The main floor had the lobby and all the bedrooms and stuff. The top floor was a dark, unsafe, and deadly maintenance area with a keep out sign in the front. I decided I would look there later. As I walked down the hallway, I peered into each room. Each door had a small window on it. In one room, I saw a gray cartoon character sitting on a bed crying silently. In another room, I saw nothing but red. Finally got to room 13. Inside, I was surprised to see living conditions were fairly comfortable. There was a king-size bed, a sofa, a large HD TV, and a mini bathroom with shower. I unpacked all my stuff and locked the privacy lock. Then I sat down on the sofa. Perhaps some television would calm my nerves. The hotel only received 3 channels. The first was static. The other 2, channels 17 and 21, were both very weird. On channel 21, there was some poorly filmed show called Mr. Bear's Cellar. On channel 17, there was a show called Cancel Cove. Neither show particularly interested me. Something seemed quite off about both of them, though. After about 5 minutes, I heard a knock on the door and a kid's voice calling. "Sir, could you please let me in? I don't know where my parents are." I peered out the window and saw that the kid's eyes were completely black. It was creepy, so I took out Pacemaker and shot him dead. After that, I decided to go back to bed. It wasn't very late, but I was bored. I started to fall asleep, but suddenly I was reawakened by another knock at the door. Grudgingly, I got up again and walked to the door. Directly outside was a white-faced man with a knife. He had dark, sunken eyes, long matted hair, and a large red smile. The knife he had was rather sharp. "Are you having sleep troubles?" He cackled outside my door. I rolled my eyes and muttered, "I wouldn't if you didn't interrupt my sleep." I took out Pacemaker and blew his brains out. 5 seconds later, a duplicate of a weird-looking person appeared at my door. This one was exactly the same in every way. The knife was the same too. I shot out his brains as well. Again, the same thing happened. This time, 5 more appeared. "Why are there so many of you?" I screamed. "We are Jeff the Killer clones from the internet and crappy pasta," said one of them. All the Jeffs began to try to break down the door. I backed up and held Pacemaker tightly. There are many ways a story might end. Here are 3. Number 1. The happy with a twist ending. I pulled the trigger back on Pacemaker, squeezing out several shots. Then I turned around and went out the window next to the bed. I ran to my car and put the key in the ignition. Then I drove away as fast as I could. As I sped away, suddenly I realized something was not right. I had left my suitcase inside the hotel. Number 2. The stereotypical ending. I pulled the trigger back on Pacemaker, squeezing out several shots. Suddenly I felt lightheaded. I passed out. Later I woke up in a hospital room. I could hear a nurse saying, "The patient has woken." I just know this all could have been prevented if he had not taken too many Claritin pills. He must have been a doctor. I could tell by the way he spoke. Also, his name tag said he was an MD. Why was I in a hospital? What about the hotel place? Maybe I've been dreaming about the hotel stuff. The doctor and nurse left. I looked at my bedside table. It was a get well soon card on it and had a picture of a man with a bleach white face and a large smile in scrawled handwriting with the words, "Go to sleep." Number 3, the "Were you even trying" ending. I pulled back the trigger on Pacemaker, squeezing out several shots. All of them hit the Jeffs. Within 3 seconds, the fight was over. Yay! I am so glad that I did not have to work hard to write this ending, said the author. I love cop-outs. Well now, what am I gonna do? Wondered the time-traveling dad. Here, have an all-expense-paid trip to Tibet with one friend, said the author, and the time-traveling dad noticed that he was stepping on 2 plane tickets. But hold on, said time-traveling dad. We never explained why I'm called time-traveling dad. This story had literally nothing to do with time travel. So, said the author, maybe I made the title a little misleading, but I'll leave that to the reader's imagination. Now hold on a second, said the time-traveling dad. I haven't got the time, explained the author. You see, I'm going to write a story that will be super awesome. It's called Jeff the Killer versus Candle Jack. That's ridiculous, said the time traveler. I try not to think of it, but it haunts me. We've all heard stories about this place, about all those who go are never the same. There are a few words in a school about it, mainly of how much of a terrible place it is. I've heard of one story where a girl went in there for only 5 minutes and saw all sorts of abysmal things. Of men who linger there still for hours, sitting patiently and looking for easy prey, and of images that are so nerve-wracking, so perverse, and so grotesque that all those who see them cannot forget them. And even stories of people who go there and instantly become addicted. They say it is the prison in the sea of knowledge. I have only been there once. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was only 15, and at that age, the stories I heard from that place were so macabre that my curiosity was just too great. I needed to know where this place was and how I could get there. After all, I had never heard of anything so physically harmful there, other than the addiction. I was so young and naive back then. I went seeking for those who have gone. I heard online that there is 3 sure ways of finding someone that has been there. 1. They must have a wicked sense of humor. 2. They must never be serious. And 3. They must always seem unscathed from the place. That's when I met John. John had always laughed at someone getting hurt, or somebody throwing up. He particularly lived out the pain of others. He also seemed a bit jubilant. He must have been on there for hours, but he seemed strangely normal in a way. I soon found that to be false. In fact, he was far from normal. John told me stories of this place. Some of the god-awful images, and a number of stories pertaining to what he calls creeps. He told me of the men just like the girl had seen. He told me he knew those men. John, where is this place? I questioned. 4chan.